In the golden age of Athens, the streets hummed with democracy, art, and argument. The city saw itself as the center of the world, a beacon of civilization. But walking through its marble squares, or agora, was a man who didn't fit in. His name was Socrates. He wasn't rich. He wasn't handsome. In fact, people said he was ugly, with a snub nose and bulging eyes. He wore the same simple robes every day and walked barefoot. He wasn't a politician, a general, or a sophist, the popular teachers who charged high prices to teach young men how to win arguments. Socrates was something else. He was a stonecutter by trade, but his real job, he said, was being a gadfly. He was the stinging fly sent to wake up the lazy horse of Athens. His mission began with a message from a god. His friend had visited the oracle at Delphi and asked if any man was wiser than Socrates. The oracle's answer was simple: no man is wiser. This baffled Socrates. He knew he wasn't wise. He knew nothing. So, he set out to prove the oracle wrong. He went to a famous politician, a man known for his wisdom. "Tell me," Socrates asked, "what is justice?" The politician gave a confident, popular answer. Socrates listened patiently and then asked another question. And another. And another. Within minutes, the politician's definition was in tatters, a mess of contradictions. The man was left red-faced and angry, exposed as knowing nothing about the very thing he built his career on. Socrates left, realizing the oracle was right in a way. That man thinks he knows something, but he doesn't, Socrates thought. I know that I know nothing. And in that, perhaps, I am wiser. He did the same to the poets, asking them to explain their own poems. They couldn't. He questioned the artisans. They knew their craft, but they believed this made them wise about everything else, which they weren't. Socrates didn't just question the old, he captivated the young. Young men like Plato and Alcibiades followed him everywhere, listening as he brilliantly, and often humorously, unraveled the arrogance of Athens' most powerful men. He wasn't teaching them what to think, he was teaching them how to think. He called this the Socratic method. For him, the most important rule was, the unexamined life is not worth living. But a man who makes fools of the powerful doesn't make friends. The mood in Athens was dark. The city had just lost a long, devastating war with Sparta. The people were paranoid, looking for a scapegoat. Their democracy was fragile, and this barefoot man challenging every tradition and every authority seemed dangerous. 3 men, a poet, a politician, and a craftsman, brought formal charges against him. The charges were corrupting the youth of Athens, impiety, not believing in the city's gods and inventing new ones. They were dragging him to court. They wanted him silenced. They wanted him dead. The trial was a spectacle. 500 citizens gathered as the jury. Socrates, now 70 years old, was not afraid. His accusers gave dramatic speeches, painting him as a monster who was tearing the city apart. Then it was his turn to speak. He did not beg. He did not cry, or bring his weeping wife and children to the court to ask for pity, as was common. Instead, he questioned his accusers. He cross-examined them with the same calm, piercing logic he used in the street. He tied them in knots, showing the jury that the charges were based on personal anger, not facts. He explained that he wasn't an atheist. He believed in a divine voice, his daimonion, that stopped him when he was about to do wrong. He told them he was not a corrupter, he was a gift. Men of Athens, he said, I am that gadfly, and all day long and in all places, I am always fastening upon you, arousing and persuading and reproaching you. You will not easily find another like me, and so I advise you to spare me. He was telling the jury that they needed him. It was the ultimate act of defiance. The jury was enraged by his arrogance. They voted. He was found guilty. The trial moved to the penalty phase. The prosecution demanded death. The defense, Socrates, was allowed to propose a counter-penalty. This was his chance to save himself. His friends urged him to suggest exile. Socrates stood up. He considered the damage he had done. What did he deserve for spending his entire life waking them up, pushing them toward truth, and ignoring his own business for their sake? He proposed his penalty, He should be given free meals for life at the Prytaneum, the sacred hall where Olympic heroes were honored. The jury was insulted beyond belief. This man was not only defying them, he was mocking them. Their vote was swift and final. The margin for his death sentence was even larger than the margin for his conviction. Socrates was sentenced to die by drinking hemlock, a poison. He was held in a state prison for 30 days. His friends, rich and influential, came to him in the pre-dawn darkness. His friend Crito had a plan. He had bribed the guards. The boat was ready. "Socrates," Crito pleaded, "you must escape. Think of your children. Think of your friends. What will people say of us, that we let you die?" Socrates was calm. He looked at his old friend and began to question him. "Crito," he said, "should we listen to the opinion of the many, or the opinion of the few who know what is right?" "The few, of course," Crito said. "And if I escape," Socrates continued, "what am I doing? I am breaking the laws of Athens. All my life I have lived under these laws. They gave me my birth, my education, my marriage. I made a contract with them. Now, just because I don't like their verdict, should I betray them? Would that be just?" He argued that to flee would be to prove his accusers right, that he was a corrupter, a man who broke the law when it suited him. To die was to be a victim of unjust men, but to flee would be to become an unjust man himself. Crito had no answer. The escape was called off. On the final day, his friends gathered. They were weeping, but Socrates was not. He spoke to them about the nature of the soul, his belief that death was not an end, but perhaps a great journey, or a peaceful, dreamless sleep. As the sun began to set, the jailer came in crying. He apologized to Socrates, saying he was the noblest man who had ever entered the prison. He brought the cup of hemlock. Socrates took it without trembling. He made a prayer and drank the poison down in one smooth draught. His friends burst into tears. "What is this?" Socrates scolded them gently. "I sent the women away so we would not have this. Be calm and bear it with patience." He began to walk around as the jailer had instructed, until his legs grew heavy. He lay down on the cot. The cold numbness began in his feet and started to climb, moving up his body toward his heart. He covered his face. Then, just before the end, he uncovered it one last time and spoke his final words to his friend. "Crito," he whispered, "we owe a rooster to Asclepius. Please remember to pay the debt." It was a strange final line. Asclepius was the god of healing. Socrates was saying that death was not a sickness, but a cure. He was finally healed of the disease of life. Then, the man who dared to question everything was silent. Socrates wrote no books. He built no monuments. But his death was his final lesson. His student, Plato, wrote down everything. And through those writings, the questions of Socrates echoed out of Athens, across centuries, and built the foundation of all Western thought. He died, but his search for truth became immortal.